Okay, I would like to welcome everybody back. I'm Michael Shanti. I'm here with my guest, Joshua Ham. We're talking about this notion of raising awareness and this awakening of consciousness that's happening in our society. Yes. And we've been talking a little bit so far about some of the mechanics, how consciousness influences events around us. And so what are some of the things that are out there that impact our awareness and hence help shape our conscious, thoughts and intents?
Right. I would say on the level that we all grow up with, obviously how we're educated, parents, peers, television, for example. And we also have to understand that television is about entertainment and making money, and in some cases, news also have a lot of views or not a lot of views, and that images can be, if you will, manipulated to create this entertainment factor. And we should take a conscious look and awareness as to what is being promoted in those things. I'm noticing in a lot of TV shows as well as music, there's a lot of repetition of elements that are very seductive. But then there's also, for example, in the other end of things, this raising of awareness. A lot of people are talking more openly. They're, like you said, there's the internet, there's a sharing of YouTube videos, and all over Facebook, there's all these people posting all these things. You can post articles, even something you wrote, and you can put it in a way that's digestible for other people. And we don't live in a world where, some people will believe blindly, but you can go and do your own research. We live in the world of information. So I find that all those things contribute to a raising of awareness and just a complexity of information that we might have not been able to have before. And I do personally believe that there is a non-linear interaction between energies of people on all the way from the biological to the quantum level. Also the electromagnetism in the body might behave in a way that Tesla believed, which is that there's a resonance between things. For example, if there's people who can break a glass with a pitch, and it's because their voices are able to match the frequency of the vibration of the glass. And I do believe that human beings can also resonate with one another. We are our cells and molecules do vibrate. There's some people that are now talking about sound qualities at an atomic level. That's new, and that might not lead anywhere. I don't know. I can't say. But there's also, what if, in the way quantum things behave, human beings also would interact at a quantum level. We can't prove that yet, but there's a lot of theories out there. Some of them are controversial. And I think if it's happening on the level of basic matter and reality, then I'm sure it's happening between us. So I do think there is a connectivity, and I do think that the more something, especially when we live in a world where we have so many obstacles and issues, and people begin to look elsewhere for solutions, I think a lot of people find themselves educating themselves in a way where they can make this difference. And it doesn't have to be that you go out and become famous and write books, which is great. I think it starts with the everyday interactions. I think it starts with your intention throughout the day. I think it keeps going with the people you interact with, how you interact with them, having conversations, and everyone has different comfort levels, So in my life, it helps me not preaching to them, but rather just going through my own thought process in a logical way, and maybe it could open their mind over a period of time or not. Everyone's different, but regardless, I feel like just that happening and so many other people around the world also doing this collectively I've seen an increase. For example, 5 years ago, there are some subjects that I would not have even dreamed of. For example, one of my friends, that's just only is very standardized way of viewing the world it's completely different now. Subjects that seem taboo are now very common, and I've seen this exponentially growing. So I definitely think there is an awareness that is spreading all throughout the world.
Right. And it seems like, when the Occupy movement happened, which was, really a major, jolt
Yes.
to this raising awareness of what's really happening in our society and a lot of
Right.
the inequities that exist.
Right.
And so it's very interesting how, it was almost this unified effort by, corporate media and this controlled media thing to squelch this and
Yes.
to belittle it.
Yes.
One example, I talked to a family member, and this was back when Occupy was going, and I was pretty active out there in the park doing my thing,
Okay.
and her opinion of it, her observation of it from watching the news was that, oh, these people pee in bottles. And I, and you wonder, well, so, what is it that this established structure of paradigm is trying to preserve? If here's this major social movement,
Right.
but this is the image they want to project onto those who don't know it.
Exactly. There's always been, I wouldn't call it because it's more a collective thing. There's always been a way of doing what you call like character assassination, and always a way of demeaning things by way of image. For example, in the 60s, there were a lot of people that were doing very similar things, and these labels and stereotypes were created. For example, even today, the word hippie is a very a used word, and I could talk to someone, and I could just be talking about preserving things in the earth, nothing too radical or anything, and I've been called a hippie for that. And I believe caring about the world you live in is normal and important.
Yeah, see, I'm old school. Your hair has to be a lot longer to
Yeah,
qualify
right,
for
right.
the moniker of hippie.
Right. Yeah, I have short hair. I'm a clean cut guy, but I adopt a lot of those beliefs, and I think, if there is an established paradigm, and the changing of that established paradigm threatens economic prosperity, or even political agendas, and what I mean by agendas is just anything, any kind of thing going on.
Everybody has an agenda.
Right, everyone, that's just how the world moves. But I definitely think that there'd be a painting of images in a way where people dismiss something or belittle it or almost subconsciously think of it as unimportant. And I do see a lot of that. I do see a lot of people who criticize the Occupy movement, or who think all these stereotypes, they pee in bottles, or they don't have jobs, or, and I think that's not, I think people should really educate themselves and see it for themselves before they make such hasty dismissals.
Right. And going back to the idea of raising awareness is, helping people be aware that, for example, these occupiers who are out here sleeping in sleeping bags, a lot of these people are, doctors.
Exactly.
And scientists and from all walks of life, school
Exactly.
teachers, bus drivers. These aren't just, the unemployed homeless who had nowhere
Exactly.
else to hang out. These were
Right.
a very educated group of people who really rallied around this because, they really felt something new was happening here.
Exactly.
And we want to go into a little bit here and talk about, some of the tangible things that we can see, the actual manifestations of this new raising awareness and this new social consciousness that's growing. And one of the things that comes to my mind is the recently McDonald's, of all people, has come out and said that they are going to eliminate the antibiotics in their chicken products because they're finding out that children are developing a natural tolerance to medical treatments of the antibiotics because they've been feeding it into the chickens.
Right.
And I never necessarily saw any mass protest in the street at McDonald's to do this. Why is it that it's happening?
Very interesting, and that's a great question. I do, like we're talking about the conscious awareness, and many people, I guarantee you, there's some decline. McDonald's is still obviously a very profitable company, but even Chipotle, changed the way they decided to raise their, meat, their chickens, and how they wanted to go about. And they're a huge chain within themselves, and a lot of different food distributors and markets are also, putting labeling on things, and there's a lot more effort to make sure if something's really organic that it really is. Labels can be tricky sometimes. I find that I've heard of a lot of different countries banning GMOs or Monsanto, and there's a lot of awareness going on, not just in the United States, but everywhere. In terms of McDonald's, that to me was awesome for one, and two, very mind blowing, because that's one of those things you almost think wouldn't happen, but it is, and it's a huge sign of this awareness and that people, these companies, that it does work. That even these companies that seems like they're too big to fall and they won't change their ways are starting to adapt to our changing of awareness. And they're kind of having to go with that flow because they depend on the consumer. And I think this, to me at least, it's a personal motivation and also inspiration that this will continue to happen. That there will be all legalizing of pot was already happening in one state, and I think even in terms of different outlooks on same-sex marriage, all these different things are becoming a lot more open-minded, a lot more changed, and I think it's healthy to have debate and a little bit of controversy because it makes people think. And I'm just seeing this happening with a lot of things. So a lot more on going a sharp increase in farmers markets, for example, and local governments. I live here in California, and I love being able to go to a farmers market.
Right.
It's one of my favorite things, and to be able to get real, live, organic food. I used to hate salads, for example. I didn't even like tomatoes, but when I get a real, live, organic anything, and I put it together to make a salad or whatever I want to do with it, it's better than any fast food I've ever had.
There is something about actually talking and conversing to the guy who actually grew the food that you're about to take home and put on your plate.
Exactly.
And and again, this is this exchange of this almost a subconscious as well as the conversation, but behind the conversation, it's almost like there's this conscious awareness of this symbiotic thing.
Exactly.
And there, and you brought the point of the gay marriage, which is clearly got the momentum, and it seems like it's inevitable now that it's going to become a fully widespread. Which I'm completely love is love,
Right.
And nobody should have the right to put a barrier on that.
Right.
And but yet there's still a lot of staunch opposition.
Yes.
And do you think that kind of opposition enhances this spread of consciousness? Sort of the idea of when somebody comes up and tells you not to do it, the first thing you want to do is run out and do it.
Right.
Or do you think it's slowing it down, or do you think it's actually speeding it up?
I think there's ebb and flow between that. I definitely do think there are people, for whatever reason, whether it's because their political or their religious views are infringed upon, or they feel that, or because economic factors, or people might lose revenue for having certain kinds of belief systems start to grow and thrive. There's definitely opposition, and that's just how it is with anything. And in some cases, I think it can slow it down. But another thing, sometimes I think having an adversarial opposition helps in it's an obstacle that people have to overcome, let's say. And I'm not saying that I agree or I disagree with whatever particular obstacle that might be, but in some cases it makes people have to organize better and work harder at spreading awareness and there's so many different ways and so many different avenues that people do this, and I think it can make it stronger sometimes. I used to have a very negative view about a lot of things that I viewed as oppressive, and it's not that I don't disagree with it anymore, but I stopped looking at it as this almost monolithic, overbearing opposition that's almost unsurmountable, I started thinking of it as a catalyst for change. If there's people, for example, who might be trying to take rights away or do things on a way that is very greedy, for example, or even food, or the way like we were talking about at some point, food was even at a standard grocery store wasn't organic, and there's a lot of things put in there. Because of that, there's been a lot of people who have begun to mobilize and move and spread more awareness to change that. And so sometimes opposition can be a catalyst for increasing awareness as well. And so I find that more from an observational point of view very, very interesting. And yes, I do think they're slowing down. Maybe there's people who have come up with radical ideas and someone gave them some money and privatized an idea. So it's kind of a back and forth. I can't say whether it's one or the other. I think it's a little of both.
Okay. Yeah, and so I just wanted to kind of highlight some of and these are just these things I'm about to mention. These are all really within the last matter of weeks.
Right.
For one, Nestle's has committed to removing all of its artificial flavors and colors from its chocolate products in the U.S.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, 2 years ago or so, I mean, who would have even thought?
Yeah.
It's just a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it matters.
Yes.
And what do you think is the process between somebody realizing it matters and it actually happening?
That's very interesting. That's a great question. Process-wise, especially looking at the last few years, it's happened in a way to me like so incredibly quickly that I can't say I could break it down, but it's definitely by people marching out, by people bringing awareness, by people telling you what's in these products, and even if it's just a post online, sometimes you can go online and disprove it. Sometimes you realize, oh, this is real. They put all sorts of things in these things that would honestly astonish people, and for me, it did that. There were some things that I thought, oh, it's just a chocolate bar, or it's just microwavable food.
Yeah, a glass of milk.
Right, glass of milk. Yeah, but in reality, there are many things in there that could be carcinogens. There are things that we don't know the long-term effects of, and I've seen a rise in a lot of obesity as well as autoimmune disorders and other disorders that people are talking about and creating these symptomatic treatments for. But I think a lot of it does come down to food, and people are beginning to realize that a constant intake of unnatural things, it has an impact on them. And it might be that someone had someone in their life that got impacted by something or passed away, possibly because of their unhealthy habits. And it's kind of like you see them transition in the mid-century from cigarettes to now. There's still a lot of consumption, but there are a lot more warnings. There's a lot more mainstream education about their negative qualities. Whereas at one point, cigarettes were looked at as one of the most normal, almost healthy things to do.
They were glamorous.
Yes, they were glamorous. Yeah,
it was very glamorous to have
yes.
your big cigarette holder in the movie stars.
Exactly.
I mean, and nowadays, how often do you see somebody smoking a cigarette
exactly.
in a motion picture?
Exactly.
Unless they're the bad guy.
Yeah, usually the bad guy or the rule breaker, which has its own appeal. But
yeah, it does, and it's entertaining.
Right.
And and so we're seeing a lot of other things. We're seeing corporations, AIG, which is raising its minimum wage for its employees to $15 an hour.
That's great.
Walmart has even raised it to $10 an hour.
Right.
Cities, Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, all come to mind that have responded to this, and and really, prior to the Occupy movement, who was really even talking about these issues?
Exactly. When Occupy began, I saw this huge increasing of awareness of people beginning to question a lot of things, from in things in politics to the bipartisan system to how corporations and different kinds of industries do what they do. And because of this awareness, they're having to go with the flow, and the people are the mass, the people are the power, and the more educated and active people are, even if it seems like, oh, they're just a couple, people in the park or whatever. It doesn't. That has a huge impact on people. People take notice. It's been televised. The internet is, like I said, another alternate form of media that anybody can look at. And even if something isn't televised, you can educate yourself on things that are going on a major level and see the impact that it's having. So I definitely think Occupy helped, light the fire, and really helped move things forward on many levels.
Yep. And so what kind of steps could a person take? They're just starting to get that sense that, the status quo just no longer serves me. Does it just happen? Does it take an intentional effort? What do you feel about that?
I feel for some people, it can be sudden. It can be a realization or something that happened in their lives that causes them to question and educate themselves in different kinds of ways and be more active. For some people, it definitely takes more of a conscious intention and effort. It starts with the people around you, and it starts with you, and that's happening not just with you, but all over the world. And like I said, in the information age, it's a lot easier to share your ideas or to learn from other people's ideas. And I think the sharing of ideas and the sharing of opinions and is very important in that process.
And not necessarily agreeing,
Right.
but by putting it out there. What sort of factors are out there that might inhibit somebody's growth and pursuit of this new sense of consciousness and these greater awarenesses?
I think a lot of it, at least for a lot of people that I've known in my generation, there's a lot of fear of what your parents might think or what peers might think or how you would be looked at as a member of society. And I find that the more people that become in tune or aware of this, the less of that there is. And there's also, I'm seeing in a lot of people, a sense of not really caring about what other people think and still being grounded members, contributing to society who care about what they believe or what they're moving towards, this new awareness and an improved world, if you will. And they've always, all throughout history, people who have different ideas or who are progressive have always been sort of a minority, and sometimes viewed as radicals or crazy or however, the Times labeled them. But if it was true, if it was relevant, and if it was something truly progressive, it almost eventually they became the norm. That takes time, but that takes those people really moving through with it. And you see that with voting rights in the past. You've seen it with science in a time where it was heretical. There's been a lot of different ways in which people transcend those limitations. But yes, there's besides your peers, there might be media who, for example, try to make people who have alternate views painted in a certain image. I always hear the word conspiracy theorist, and that's become a general term for anybody that has an alternate view of anything.
Right. I don't agree with you. You're a conspiracy.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it's like, at least let's hear the points, and let's And there are some people that also do fall into a new, they jump out of the box, but into another one, and that's one thing I would like to also raise awareness in is you can also pick and choose what it is that you agree with or resonate with, or what your level of understanding of things is at the moment, and continue to question and grow. And you don't have to take in everything at once. So and you have to question everything. You have to be a critical thinker as you're also being open-minded and raising your awareness as well. I think that's important.
Right. Again, you're starting to see the seeds of a new consciousness.
Right.
Of, we've seen it on, the issue of food, which, going to any grocery store and the organic food section is
Right.
is huge.
It's
When
huge.
5 years ago it didn't exist.
It did exist, yeah.
And now we go and we're seeing Walmart raises its minimum wage.
Yeah.
We're seeing a company like McDonald's showing a little bit of consciousness in, well, antibiotics, maybe they are bad, we'll change. And we're seeing real tangible changes, which and I was talking to a friend the other day, and I agreed. These may be construed essentially as sort of baby steps in the larger picture.
Right.
But every journey has the first step.
Exactly.
And it seems to me that, we have made that first step now as a society
Absolutely.
at this consciousness level,
Absolutely.
and it's exciting to see where it might go.
Exactly.
So, anyway, I think that's about all of our time, Joshua. I really appreciate you, sitting down, having this chat with me, and helping me bring this information out to the listeners. I'm Michael Shanti. I'm with my good friend Joshua Ham, psychologist, soon to be author, working on his initial publications. We look forward to reading your work. I've read some of your articles you've sent over and stuff, and very impressive work, a lot of detail and a lot of thought.
Thank you.
We very successfully avoided some of the more esoteric elements of conversations that we like to delve into.
Right.
But we wanted to present the listener at home some real tangible benefits to this idea of raising awareness, and don't be afraid to do something to help raise an awareness.
Exactly.
Because again, a person's their consciousness can't grow if they're not aware of that there's somewhere to grow to.
Exactly.
And
That's a great point.
So on that statement, I think we'll say good night. And again, we thank the listeners for tuning in. I thank you, Joshua, for showing up. And I'm Michael Shanti, and we wish you all a good life and a good conscious intent out there. Make good things happen, people.
Later, guys. Thank you so much for having me.